Hello, and welcome to the Dissident Mama podcast. Today, my guest is Ann Wilson Smith. Smith is the author of the brand new book, Charlottesville Untold, Inside Unite the Right, as well as Robert E. Lee, a history book for kids, both produced by the good folks at Shotwell Publishing. Having called the Republic of South Carolina home for most of her life, Smith was reared in a family that believes Southern history is something to be cherished. The daughter of preeminent Southern historian and scholar Clyde N. Wilson, Smith is a formidable writer in her own right and has taken up the difficult task of authoring 2 books in less than a year, even though she's a wife and a mom of 2 boys, simply because some things just gotta be said. Welcome, Ann.
Well, thank you.
So I'm so excited to talk to you, not only because your book just came out, and I'll ask you, is it actually out or not yet? I'm not sure, but it has been written. It is off to the press. It's ready to be read and consumed by everyone, but we are friends as well. So that's my disclaimer. I still might ask you some hard questions, but
Okay.
I'm so excited to talk with you about this book that I think is just ripe for the picking. So it's hot off the press. Your book is organized so well. So, Charlottesville, it's kind of a hornet's nest, but you organized it in such a way that it is so easy to understand. It is a page turner. How did you manage to write such a thorough, well-researched book, being a mom, being a wife? I'm sure you've got yard work and stuff like that too, and church. And how did you pull this off?
Well, it was a big daunting job. I basically just did it little by little by little. I told some people it was kind of like having a 10,000 piece puzzle with no picture on the box. You just got all these scattered pieces, and you sort of have to start putting them together little bits at a time. At times I thought it would never get done. I would, find something new that I wanted to research and add, and it would seem like the finish line was getting farther away instead of closer. But I just a few hours a day, after dinner, just kind of plugging away, and eventually it finally miraculously got done.
Well, I don't think it could have probably been part miracle, but it has to do with all your hard work. And that's one of the things, as a writer myself who has never written a book, you just want to add in more details and you think, oh, this has to be put in. But eventually you had to say, no, Moss, it's done. And whatever you left out didn't need to be there, because it's great. And it really makes me feel like I was there. So Charlottesville, for those who don't know, was a watershed moment for America. And, it's one of those things for me personally that I kind of remember, like where I was for 9/11 and the Berlin Wall coming down, where I was the day Charlottesville happened. I watched a lot of these videos in real time over the following days, but so much of the stuff is not even available anymore. The images, all that stuff happening in real time, or parsing through those videos after the subsequent days. So, how did you find all of this information? How did you make it feel like we were all there as you're turning through the pages? And why did you decide to write the book? So first of all, how did you get all the information? Did you still have copies of some of these videos? Was it all just from researching and talking to people? I mean, how did you get it so good?
Well, thanks, Joe. Well, the starting point was the interviews. The first thing, and I, because of having connections through blogging and through the Southern Heritage Movement, I just knew people in different areas, and I just put the word out. I want to write this. If anyone's willing to be interviewed, then I want them to contact me. And so I started doing that, and also because I was there, I had been following a lot of stuff just out of personal interest. So I had been keeping an eye on the websites of the various important people that were there, and I just knew where to find certain things that I thought were important to mention, and that's why I thought a book kind of needed to be written, because there is all this really fascinating and important information out there, but it's just scattered across the internet. A lot of the people involved have been banished from mainstream social media, and if you don't know where to look, you just won't know. And because I had been interested and had my eye on a few of the players, that I knew where to find it, and I just had to kind of pull the pieces together from different areas, and then try to kind of put them together in a narrative form. So if someone only knew the very basics about Unite the Right, that kind of put everything into context for them, and sort of I wanted to make the person reading it kind of feel like they were walking through the day with the different people that were there, to make it very vivid. Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that you were there. I want to get to that in a minute. So, but so kind of filter that through what we're talking about before we get to that question, dear listener. But do you think now, because it's been 4 years, that people are finally ready for the truth? And maybe not all people, that's not the case, unfortunately, but maybe some people who weren't so sympathetic and on August 12th, 2017, but maybe are now.
I think and hope that is the case, because like, for example, the January 6th thing, I think something somewhat similar happened to people who are, I guess, more mainstream conservatives. And I think that people that are witnessing that, they may be, ready to look at Charlottesville in a different light and think, well, maybe that wasn't what the news said it was either. So, yeah, I hope at least some people will be, open-minded about it, and I think that a lot of mainstream conservatives, they know better than to trust everything they hear on the news, but they just never had the alternative information presented to them, because as I've said, the people involved are kind of been banished to the fringes of the internet, and if you don't know where to look, you probably won't find it. So I think that people may know that what they heard wasn't the whole truth, or wasn't the truth at all, but they don't know, they haven't had an opportunity to hear the other side of the story.
Yes. And, whenever you're reading anything about Charlottesville, or when it's referenced at all, deadly white supremacist rally, right? Violent neo-Nazis versus, peaceful protesters, racist, that kind of stuff. People, I think a lot of normies just kind of accepted that, okay, these bad guys were, taken care of, and let's all keep going on with our lives. And they didn't really look at the ramifications of it or how it unfolded, which we'll get to as well. But, now that they may have gone to the January 6th protest, or know people who have, and all they hear is insurrection, 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 they're like, hey, like you said, maybe we're not being told the whole story, or maybe what the mainstream media and all the powers that be are saying is absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, I think this is just the right time for it, especially because of just the gaslighting with, the riots in 2020 that went on and on and on and on. And we're all supposed to pretend like they're not happening, or that they're glorious, or, that COVID's not happening and they're all immune to that. So, I mean, I don't know if you planned it to come out exactly right now, but I think it's just right. So you attended the rally. Why did you go?
And I kind of explained this in the introduction to the book. For me, there's a direct parallel in my mind between Columbia and Charlottesville. I'm from Columbia, South Carolina, and the Confederate flag was always a controversial issue in Columbia. I don't remember it ever not being a controversial issue. It used to be on the dome of the Capitol, and then they moved it to a kind of display on the grounds of the state capitol, and they created an African-American monument. And and I think a lot of people thought, well, maybe this will kind of resolve it. Everyone's getting their their point of view acknowledged. But after the Dylann Roof shootings, the Confederate flag became an issue again. It shouldn't have. He doesn't represent the South or in the Confederacy, but it became an issue. And then so I felt, and I had voted for Nikki Haley. She came in as a Tea Party populist, and seemed pretty reasonable at the time. And I thought at first she seemed like she was going to defend us, and then she went along with the kind of Republican Party line. Let's the New South. Let's want to. And she said, I think she wanted to bring healing by getting rid of the Confederate stuff. And I was as someone who is raised to appreciate the Southern point of view of history, I was, dismayed by that. And I, and especially since that seemed to somehow open the floodgates to across the nation, a lot more monuments started coming down, and it became a bigger issue. And I was very frustrated, because it didn't seem like anybody was really doing anything effective about it. I know some people were trying to, but I just felt like more something bolder needed to be done than what was being done. And when I heard about this, the Unite the Right, it was going to be something really big and make a strong statement of people that were concerned about American heritage being erased. And I just thought I should be there and be supportive of that.
Right. And that's funny you mentioned the word healing. Anytime you hear that, or let's have a national conversation, run for the hills, right? So I had seriously thought about attending, back and forth, you know. It wasn't just that, oh, let's go to Charlottesville for the day and then we'll, you know, go to a winery afterwards. You know, Charlottesville used to be a quaint little Blue Ridge town. I'm from Richmond, so I've been to Charlottesville 1,000 times, had tons of friends who went to UVA. And it was only about 45 minutes from my hometown. But, you know, the 2017 leading up to that was not a calm year for anybody who was paying attention. So a lot of people weren't paying attention. So I think Charlottesville, what's happening? There's riots in the streets. They didn't know about the Battle of Berkeley. They didn't know about Boston. They didn't know all that kind of stuff because I guess they just weren't political junkies the way we were.
Yeah.
So I ultimately decided not to go because I thought, you know, I probably will defend myself. And even then I thought I'll probably be the one to get in trouble if I defend myself, because I had been paying attention to these other protests that were always, you know, leftists were allowed to kind of do what they wanted and go off unhinged. And plus I have a family member who is a police officer somewhere in Virginia, and he was like, don't go. So even he was like, it's going to be bad. And I found that very interesting. However, you know, I thought I'm going to go and take a stand against Southern cultural genocide. You know, I thought that a lot of people there maybe didn't care about the South, but they didn't like cultural Marxism. I mean, having been there, do you think, I mean, you've written the book and I don't want to give too much away, but do you think there was actually, besides all the stresses that went down, say it had gone off without a hitch, would there actually been enough unity there to bring people together, opposition to cultural Marxism or being pro free speech or whatever it was? Or do you think it was already too disparate before poop hit the fan?
Well, it was pretty disparate. I mean, there's a lot of very, very different groups represented there. But I think it was the beginnings of a movement. I mean, there were a lot of interesting personalities and a lot of enthusiasm. And yeah, I think it could have, I mean, you know, it was still the beginning of a movement. But yeah, I do think it would have been kind of galvanized the movement. So yeah, I think it would have been important.
Okay, good. So, you know, I was recently talking with John Harris about this, and he had asked me when I thought the big purge of the monuments started. And I had said Charlottesville, but, you know, your book really makes the case that Charlottesville could have never happened without Nikki Haley, could have never happened without the battle flag and all the hoo-ha that happened. That was really the Pandora's box, because not only did it happen by a person that was supposed to be friendly to the Southern cause, but that so many Republicans got on board. You know, Rand Paul was like, take that flag down. Even Babylon Bee, which I love the Babylon Bee, you know, they were very much for the flag coming down too. And I wonder if they would be against it to this day. I'll have to ask them. Maybe they'll come on my show. But the point of me bringing all this up was Charlottesville could not have happened, in my opinion, without the aiding and abetting of conservatives, you know. So leftists smelled blood in the water, and then all of a sudden there are no allies for anybody around. I mean, what do you think about all that? Was it just people were scared they didn't want to be called Nazis? Was it because it was so entrenched in the systemic problem, media, corporations, government? I mean, why were there so few people to just say, these people have a right to march and then they'll be done by noon, like, get over it?
It just shows you how cowardly they are and how, you know, entrenched in the system they are. You know, they absolutely, every known GOP person pretty much threw Charlottesville under the bus, as well as most, you know, the Fox News type personalities, you know, condemn the white supremacy, hate, blah, blah, blah. And I think that they just, you know, because they wanted to distance themselves from the stigma of it. And they, you know, weren't brave enough to stand up for the people that were there who had been, successfully branded as, evil by the media. And it's really is what has led to like, for example, January 6th stuff. If they had said, well, hey, we don't agree with some of this, but, they have a right to assemble, they have a right to be on, on social media. If they had made a stand about that, then it wouldn't have continued to proceed. And now it's affecting, mainstream conservatives, and they should have said, hey, that they have their right to do this, whether you like them or not. They should have said that. Or even better, they could have said, hey, these people are standing up for Heritage America. They're not, most of them are, good, well-intentioned. They could have said that right. too, but I just think they're cowards and they're self-serving.
What do you think readers will be most surprised to learn? I mean, I think just, you were saying they have the right to be there. Not only do they have a right to be there as, Americans, but it was a lawful rally that even the ACLU backed. I think that will shock a lot of people. What do you think would be the most one or two shocking things, if you can't narrow it down to one, that readers will say, oh my gosh, I wish I'd known this 4 years ago?
Well, the extent of the media misrepresentation, for one thing, that it basically was portrayed by the media like a bunch of Nazis laid siege to a city. I mean, mm-hmm. which is crazy, on a lot of levels. I think that, and also the fact that the authorities that were just outrageously guilty and that's not my personal opinion. There was an independent review, a very mm-hmm. thorough independent review by a respected prosecutor that the city paid for, that was several hundred pages long, interviewed, tons of people, looked at all the video, and they concluded there was a lot of failure after failure after failure by the city government, by different levels of government and the police. And, I think that the amount of government complicity will probably shock people. That and it's well documented. It's just that nobody knows because the media ignored it.
Right. And your book isn't just anecdotal from your perspective and talking to people and taking bits from, other journalists and, independent people and stuff. I mean, you're Anne. There's so much legal stuff in there that you make very readable for people, but that is, I think that really will shock people because they just think, oh, maybe the cops did or didn't do this, or the government, city of Charlottesville, state of Virginia, whatever, could have done this better or worse. But it's very conspiratorial, not as in a theory that, a conspiracy is when two or more people get together and decide to do something. They decided to do or not do a whole bunch of things from the top to the bottom. And I think you explain that very well. So I want readers to know that it's not just you, being emotional about this thing you feel an attachment to. You are really doing some hard-hitting journalism in here. Was that overwhelming to you?
Yes, very, very much so. And, what I tried to do was just to one little piece at a time, and and kind of look at each chapter independently. And there's so much to say about Charlottesville. I think every chapter in the book I could have written a whole book about. Yeah. So it was kind of a challenge to kind of give a condensed overview for each topic. Like censorship or like the criminal cases or something like that. But yeah, I just little by little put the research together.
Yeah, and I think that is such a great way, the way it's blended in, the legalities of it, all the, government speak that you, again, make palatable and easy for people to understand. And you're just giving like direct quotes and stuff. So you have so many just big sections of other people talking, it's like you're just the vehicle for letting it be known what has been hushed and censored for so long. I really love the firsthand interviews you did. Some of the people I happen to know, like Jean and Ayla, and I know them in person. So I didn't know them back then. And so hearing it through their words is very amazing. But, were there any folks that just wouldn't talk to you? They were just like,
Mhm.
Charlottesville's done, I'm moving on, I've changed my
Yeah,
identity 10
actually, there
times.
was somebody. I was really thrilled to find this particular person who I wanted his perspective, and I just happened to find him on a squatter account on Twitter, and I DM'd him, and I'm like, I'm so excited, and I emailed him, and he's just like, no, he's just like it, and he was still had estranged family members because of Charlottesville, and he seemed to me kind of shell shocked, and he just didn't even want to go there. And I was kind of disappointed, but I mean, I understood. So yeah.
Right. But you got enough people that I think it really encapsulates the whole day, again, to make it feel like I was there. Now, I didn't go, but I've written a lot about Charlottesville. But there were things that I learned from reading this book too, which is what's so good. So even people who think they know everything, even people who were there, you were there and you learned new things. How did writing this book, researching it, maybe change your opinions of some of the things that happened that day? Were you surprised by anything?
I won't say I don't think anything really hit me out of left field, but I guess it sort of intensified my appreciation of it by hearing every single person's story. There's just so many riveting stories, and you just see the powerful impact it had on everyone that was involved, and is continuing to get to have with the continuing legal cases. That is another important thing that I think a lot of people are not aware of. There's ongoing legal things that will have an impact far beyond just the Charlottesville attendees.
So are there still people in jail today for simply attending?
Well, I wouldn't say for attending, but for fights that would not have happened had the police done their job. Yes.
Right. Right. I think that will shock people too, when they hear, maybe the guy firing his weapon into the ground or whatever. It's because, somebody had a makeshift torch.
Yeah.
And these things, okay, I knew about those, but I think the average person simply did not. And I think they will be shocked to learn about so many of these things that happened, people who were lauded as heroes like DeAndre Harris, and what really went down with that. So domestic terrorism has been, bandied about since then, and, beforehand with Dylan Roof too. But, I really feel like there was a lack of aggressive violence done by the quote unquote right? The people who were there to support the monument or whatever they were there for, not you call them the counter protesters in the book, just for ease. I think it is overwhelming the fact that it's actually amazing more violence, more deaths did not occur that day. That's how I see it. Okay, a person died. There's a whole chapter about that in the book and how that all came to be. But one person, this was a cluster F, and it really is amazing. And I actually think it shows great restraint by the people who were being assaulted, which was every person who was not a leftist there that day.
Right.
What do you live a normal life or whatever, how do you take this information out into the world, living in a world where you want to be a law-abiding citizen, the role of the cops, they're supposed to protect us, we're supposed to have, law and order. Has it changed your outlook on just how you function as a person in society?
Well, yeah, I think I'm a lot more cautious, because you don't have you feel like if you're a dissident, if you have politically incorrect opinions, that you may not be protected, or if something happens, you'll be automatically blamed. Not that I go to protest or anything, but it does change my outlook as far as how I rely on law enforcement. And many people that I've interviewed remarked, well, that they are done with law enforcement, that they don't trust them at all anymore. And these are kind of the conservative people, tend to be the back the blue type, and they are just like, they saw a lot of police officers standing around with their arms crossed while people were getting beaten with batons, and doing nothing. So they're just done relying on law enforcement. That's like not a factor you can count on anymore.
And you are a Christian, and some of the things you write about in the book, talking about the alleged Christians in Charlottesville, that kind of blew my mind, because I kind of knew some of that, but the details you go into with the left-wing Christian element, I think will curl people's toenails.
Yeah.
Were you shocked about that, or did you see some of this with your eyes when you were there?
Well, I did see the clergy with the rainbow vestment, so I knew there were left-leaning clergy there. But yeah, the degree of complicity, I guess that is something that kind of surprised me, that they were there is reason to believe that they were working with the actual openly left-wing protesters. They did some training together before August 12th. And there's some photos of them conferring, and so yeah, they were not. You might think that the clergy would be neutral and try to keep everybody peaceful, but they actually were working with some of the left-wing protest groups. At least some of them were.
Right, and the quotes you have in there, again, I'll leave that to the reader. It's mind-boggling, and I pay attention to this stuff, and it's pretty wild. Do you think that Lee was maybe co-opted by some of the people there? Because that was another reason I thought about not going. I'm like, that's why I'm going. Okay, I don't like cultural Marxism, yay, I want free speech, all this kind of stuff. But that was my main impetus for wanting to go. But, I looked around at some of the people, not Jason Kessler, I liked him, and I still do at this point, but I was looking around and I'm thinking, well, these dudes are just a bunch of Yankees, I mean, why do they care about the Lee statue? Like, are they doing this because it just happens to be a place to gather? I mean, why do you think people were there? Well, first of all, do you think people were there who could care two hoots about the Lee statue against the Southern cultural genocide? And if so, why were they there?
Well, I think most of the people, even the non-Southerners that were there, it was good faith concern about Heritage America, or maybe they were genuinely interested in the movement. And I'm sure there were some opportunistic people there, who thought it was going to be a big event and there'll be attention.
Right.
But I think even some of the non-Southern groups that were there, they were earnestly interested in, Western heritage, and they saw that the attack on the Confederacy is as people who a lot of people predicted would continue to the founding fathers and the rest of, white America. And they were concerned about that, generally concerned about that.
Okay. They kind of saw it as just a domino and the civilization falling or whatever. So, they say, so this conspiracy to incite violence, to create this false narrative to demonize and destroy everyday people, right? So I think that's really why a lot of the people were there who maybe, they knew who Robert E. Lee was, but they, didn't care about the Confederacy, that they just simply didn't want to be treated like trash anymore. White, straight Christian men, typically from the South, doesn't have to be, but I call this the archetype. You even have a quote in your book from an ADL person who was flabbergasted by how big and widespread and quick and hostile the backlash was against anybody who was deemed the archetype, right? It became the deplorables, in January 6th insurrectionist, whatever, white supremacist person who just doesn't want to play along, Nazi, racist, whatever. Do you think the January 6th thing was as hostile and widespread as that, or do you think Charlottesville was bigger because it's still happening, or what? I mean, how would you compare the two, January 6th and Charlottesville?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, they're each important in their own way. I'm not really sure about that.
So, and by the backlash, what would this be? We're talking about what? Deep doxing, deplatforming, destroying people.
Right. And it was, even people who were just attendees would have, the leftists will swarm the social media. They will find that, I mean, it's really phenomenal how good they are at looking at pictures and details, and finding, your personal information, where you work, your family, and just sending on people and harassing them and getting them fired if they can. One guy, they had tried to take his kids away, things like that. So yeah, that was part of it, just the harassment, and then the censorship, which affected a lot of people, even that weren't there. Is really, and we've never come back from that. I mean, there's still that most of these people are not allowed on mainstream platforms, even some money type services. And then, there's the legal ramifications, and some people were prosecuted for things more so than they would have been if the same kind of fight or whatever happened in a different circumstance. So there's just all kinds of ramifications continuing on and
on. So it's a honeypot, right? So we think the honeypot is, the honey lures people in and they get in trouble for participating in this thing. They think it's going to be something great, and it turns out to not be sweet, be very sour. Do you think that's kind of the blueprint going forward for any time, any dissident, any person who just doesn't want to conform with whatever wokeism, vaccines, whatever it is? Do you think that they're going to get Charlottesville? I mean, is this?
I think so, because the formula works for them. I mean, it works. You cause trouble, get some video of people fighting, and then blame it on the ones you want to blame it on, and the news will amplify, and it works for them. So yeah, I think that's always a concern for any type of right wing or dissident person. If they're going to a protest, you've got to be super cautious, because even if you're trying very hard to obey the law and to and you feel you're innocent, there's still, you could do something that can be made to look like you're doing something wrong, interpreted as doing something wrong. Like, a lot of the Charlottesville people in the viral pictures, they were just trying to defend themselves, and the photos and the news make it sound like they were, the guilty party.
Right. And facts be damned. A lot of times it's intentions. Oh, well, why were you even there? Oh, it doesn't matter that somebody was throwing a brick at your head. You shouldn't have been there anyway, consorting with these, horrible people or whatever. And then that makes me think of the very fine people comment that Trump made. That's a very interesting chapter because, at the time, I thought that, wow, that's not good enough, Trump. But a lot of people were very pleased that he even said that. What's your take on the very fine people thing? Did it just make things worse, or was it kind of sort of an olive branch?
Well, considering that he's a politician, I thought it was kind of surprisingly even-handed. I mean, it didn't go far enough for, to tell the truth about the people that were there. But, considering what most of the other Republican politicians did that were just, couldn't throw us under the bus fast enough. The fact that he was willing to say, well, they weren't, there were bad people on both sides. And, some of these people just were there because they are for heritage preservation. The fact he was even willing to say that is kind of surprising, even though it really should have gone farther. But that, I think I'm kind of glad it happened, at least that he was somewhat put the other side of the facts out there that most people hadn't heard.
Right. Yes, he may not have been articulating it the way maybe we wanted him to, but the fact that leftists got triggered, you always know something good is happening when they're losing their minds, Oh, these people have a right to speak and congregate, oh, they're not very fine people. Yeah, that's a really good chapter. So Charlottesville not only has become kind of the blueprint or the formula, as you say, for, dissuading people from going out and speaking their minds in the public square, but also for, again, cancel culture, virtue signaling, which is off the charts. We thought it was bad in 2017. It's gotten so much worse with COVID mania and, LGBT stuff or whatever. And then the normalization of just the ad hominem attacks that everybody's a Nazi or a white supremacist. I mean, the fact that the word white supremacy is like the words are bandied about just roll off of people's tongue. I mean, it would be laughable if it wasn't so deadly serious. Was there anything when you were there that I don't know, that sparked you to that let you know that this was going to be like life altering before the violence took place? Anything like when you were getting ready to go, to be there?
I really didn't know what to expect. I knew there were going to be some, people that I'd seen on the internet, and some I didn't really know what they were all about, and a few I was familiar with. And I was just kind of interested in hearing what people had to say, and I knew it was going to be a lot of people there, and I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't think it would be life altering the way it was, though, for sure. Right. And I certainly didn't. I mean, I'm a middle-aged mother with kids. I didn't go to something expecting to be in a battle. I didn't have any weapons, any defense gear. I wasn't expecting to be in a battle. I was expecting to go, mingle in a crowd and listen to some speeches. And, that I had no idea it would be this life altering, or, that I was endangering myself.
So the people there are still people in prison for having been there, but that's not why. They say it's for other reasons, like, Christopher Cantwell or whatever he's in. It really doesn't have anything to do with Charlottesville. That's for something else after, but kind of his, he's been branded forever the crying Nazi, whatever, because of Charlottesville. I mean, would you say that there are political prisoners because of that day to this day still absolutely. In prison?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The people that were involved in the John Harris fight and James Fields were all prosecuted far, far more harshly than they would have been if the situation was not Charlottesville related, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I've said this before, and I don't know if it's true. Is James Fields in prison for hate crimes only, or is he in jail for like manslaughter or something else too? Isn't it just for hate crimes?
For both.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's what, like 400 years plus life or something like that?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's that all that information is worth the price of the book right there. And then what about, no more self-defense for I guess we'll just call us deplorables, or non-BLM people, mob rule rules the day. Do you think this book can awaken people to see that these are not good ways to have a society, that everybody needs to have a right to self-defense? We all need civil rights. It shouldn't be for some people. The death of one person is not more important than the death of another. A dead person is a dead person. I mean, that sounds kind of like, woo, kumbaya, but it's pretty basic. Do you think your book will maybe wake some people up to the fact that the way we're going forward is not going to make anybody happy or healthy?
I hope so. And I think the audience will probably mostly be mainstream conservatives who just don't know all the facts yet. But, I do hope that people will see that denying free speech and assembly to anybody is going to be harmful to the society as a whole. Now, the left-wing viewpoint is that, and I talk about some of that in there, is that they believe that these ideas that the right-wingers are proposing are so dangerous that you have a right and an obligation to use whatever means necessary to keep them from even speaking. So they feel justified in doing that. So they don't agree with free speech for everyone.
Right. And this is what turns, former kind of liberal professors into, big time free speech advocates and stuff. There are plenty of people like that, or just middle of the road people who, believe in the old adage, I don't agree with you, but you have the right to say it, and all these types of things. Mm-hmm. So how do you see the right going forward? Again, is it two kind of disparate, in reading this book, a lot of people were talking about nationalism. I love this country. And, I'm a secessionist, so I don't know if like that guy would be my people, white isn't enough, that's very inauthentic, I mean, that's almost to me as bad as like forced diversity and inclusion, it's like the opposite side of that. Is it in need of more Christianity, of more just keeping things local? How do you see the right going forward, if it is?
Well, I'm not a strategist, but I do think that any major organizing is extremely problematic and challenging. So, I mean, I think the best thing individuals can do is, you get to know your community, get involved in your church, shop local, things like that you can just do positive, small things you can do in your daily life. I think that's for most people, that's probably the best thing you can do.
Yeah, and I
as far as
agree.
major political organizing, that's out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that just becomes, another honeypot, and it would be very simple and localist. Faith, family, get together with people who share your worldview. I agree. Yeah, and it does stink because that was a moment in time that something good could have happened where people could have come together. And looking back on it just in just like a sentimental kind of way, if people had just been out there speaking their mind, hobnobbing, getting to meet people. And I always tell people, they'd be like at a bar drinking, bourbon by 2 p.m. Gene was talking about going to Monticello in the afternoon. It's like nobody thought it was going to be this huge thing that forever altered American society. It really is sad how mean the systemic problems are that are against us. So how do you, why were you willing to take the risk to write this book? You could have done it anonymously. You could have just not written it. You could have done it in pieces, spread out throughout the internet over the course of years. Why did you want to take the risk?
Well, I'm not much of a risk-taking person, but I felt like it needed to be done. I mean, there was just so much information out there that just needed to be gathered and presented. And I think there's a lot of people that would be interested in it. So I felt like it just needed to be done. And I felt that I just happened to be through, I really think it was providential. I really do. Well positioned to be able to do that because I have different groups of contacts, and because I have a connection to Shotwell, and because I had just happened to be there, even though I never ever do things like that. That's not something, I'm not an activist that does stuff like that. It just seemed like almost like everything was teed up perfectly for me, and I almost felt like I would be negligent if I didn't do it, because it just seemed like it was their way for me to do it, and I just felt that I really felt kind of led to do it. And that I don't know, it just seemed like something I felt very strongly convicted that I needed to do.
So it had just been weighing on your heart since then?
Yeah. And even right afterwards, I thought I had given a little thought to, well, gee, I'm, this mild-mannered middle-aged mother, maybe I should speak out and say, well, I don't fit the stereotype of the type of person they're saying was there. So maybe someone like me could speak out and, say, well, hey, that's not quite right. And I really gave it thought, but it just, the whole, it was like just such a powerful force. The whole media narrative was just steamrolling everything. And I thought there's really nothing any one person can do to counter this whole machine. Right. And I just decided, it just wouldn't do any good. So there's no reason to do that. But just as the years went on, and I had been following the stories, and I knew a lot about it just because I had been interested in keeping up with different things. And I just began to feel that I, had been placed in this position to be able to pull everything together and present it. So,
And this is when the rubber meets the road. I often tell people, if you're not the type of person who wants to put yourself out there, don't. I get it. Not everybody's made that way, but you have to support people who are willing to. So not only buy your book, read your book, buy many of them, give them away as Christmas presents, because it's how many chapters? It's pretty lengthy, but those Shotwell books don't have like giant pages. It's not like a tome this big. It's it really does go fast. It's what's it? 32 chapters, but they're short and pithy, and again, a page turner. We have to have your back by not only supporting you, but God forbid you get Charlottesville, we're there for you. And that's how we win. We're maybe not going to win in the public square. We're probably not going to win elections that much, at least at the national level. But that's how we win. We support each other. We're the remnant, and that's what we need to do. That's how you help. If you're not the type of person who wants to speak up, you need to help the people who speak up, like Anne. What else do you want to add for our listeners, Anne? Are you going to write any more books? Are you going to take a big vacation? What's going on?
No, I'm sort of getting back to all the stuff that I had put on hold while I was doing this. But one thing I do want to talk a little about is that there's still pending legal matters, and that's part of the reason that I had given myself a goal to get done by a certain this time of the year, because these important, really these court cases that will have an impact beyond just the people that were in attendance at Charlottesville. There's a big civil suit against the organizers, claiming that they had organized a violent conspiracy. Law enforcement hasn't said that, but but there are some. There's a civil suit with a few people that were in attendance saying that they were traumatized or they were injured or whatever, and are suing the organizers. And something like this, and the person who's leading the lawsuit has pretty much said that we want this to deter people from their political activism, and we don't. This can have a dampening effect. I mean, if you can't have a rally, then the police don't do their job, and you get sued, and you can never make a living again. Well, that's a problem for supposedly free society, where we're supposed to be able to express our values or whatever. So this could have a big impact. And
that was a lawyer who said that, correct?
So yeah, something like that. I'm paraphrasing. And there's another.
I know her. I know her name.
Yeah. And there's still a pending lawsuit against the city where they're trying, and you've interviewed Jason Kessler. He's trying to get information that the city has been dragging their feet. They say, well, it was destroyed, or we can't, he's been fighting really hard to get information released, and there's a civil suit that Jason Kessler and Matt Parrott have against the city, and they're for violating their First Amendment rights. And it could end up at the Supreme Court and have an impact on free speech rights for everyone. So these are important legal matters that are still pending, and I want people to know about those.
Yeah, and that happens in October, correct?
The big civil suit, yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And, just thinking, rubber meets the road kind of thing, I've interviewed Jason Kessler, you got to know him while writing this book. And just to think how lonely he was right after and at that press conference. I remember watching that and watching him like running away and people chasing him and nobody did a thing. We don't want anybody to feel like that who's just simply speaking their mind, that is dissenting to somebody, to something bad, or dissenting at all, that people should just be able, it wouldn't be that big of a deal if people could just, say their thing. And again, just move on with it. But this whole thing of, dampening and silencing people, I mean, it's very dystopian, it's very real. And I think your book will be a wake-up call for some people, but it needs to get into the hands of people who are not just like me, who know a little bit about it and want to know a whole lot more. It needs to get in the hands of normies, for lack of a better word, people who really still haven't connected those dots that, you can be Charlottesville any day. It doesn't matter that you're not a Nazi, right? That doesn't matter. Facts be damned, right? So, I really hope it sells well. Now, how can people get the book? Do they get it through Shotwell and through Amazon?
Yes, well, it'll be on the Shotwell Publishing website. We'll have a link to the different methods you can buy it, but yes, it will be available through Amazon. Yes.
Kindle too, or just paper?
Yeah, you should be able to get an e-copy and or a paperback.
Okay, good. And I went to the Amazon site today. It was there, but like if I clicked purchase, I wouldn't get it for a while. Do you know?
Yeah, I haven't checked today, so I don't know. They'll send out an announcement when it's ready.
Okay.
It should be any day now.
Yeah, I think it is. It said sometime in October, like a week or so from now, but they could update that all the time. I'm not sure how that works. And either way, y'all all need to go to Shotwell Publishing. I'll put that in the show notes and get on their email list because they have a lot of great books there too. And let's talk about this for just a second before I let you go. Anne wrote a book about Robert E. Lee, a children's book that is phenomenal and would make a great Christmas present. That was your first book ever, wasn't it?
Yes.
Now, Was that just because you have kids and, you wanted them to have a good Lee book because there weren't books for that age, or what? How did that come to be?
Yeah, I just noticed that there was not a lot of selection for really good children's books about the Confederacy,
Mhm.
and and that is something kind of was close to my heart that
Mhm.
I just had, and I had it written for quite a while, and it took quite a while to find the right artist, but
Mhm.
eventually we did, and he Gregory Newsom, and he did a terrific job.
Because this would be for like a picture book that a mother or father would read, or a very early reader would read, correct?
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I love that book, and I think the art is
Okay.
really great too.
Mhm.
Well, Anne, anything else you want to add for listeners?
Uh, I think we covered a lot. So
Okay.
yeah,
Well, God bless you. We've talked throughout this process, and I always knew you could do it, but I know you're so happy that it's finally done. And I just
yeah.
hope it's a huge hit, and if it triggers leftists, that's what we want, because that's when you've struck the truth. And I think you have done that with this book. Charlottesville Untold and Side Unite the Right by Anne Wilson Smith. Thank you so much, friend.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.